Today's special guest on the Chattering Hour is theatre, film, and TV actor Naomi Grossman. You may know her for her iconic role as Pepper in American Horror Story Season 2 Asylum, and for her reprisal of the role in Season 4 and her later appearance in American Horror Story. And recently she's appeared in Ryan Murphy's spin-off season American Horror Stories, but she has done so much more. Up next, the ever delightful Naomi Grossman. And we're back with our special guest, Naomi Grossman. As well as acting on film and TV, Naomi has rave reviews for her solo theatre shows, which she's performed in Los Angeles and New York off-Broadway, and in Edinburgh and London in the UK. She was also nominated for an Emmy Award for her role in the TV show CTRL ALT DELETE. Let's get to it. Naomi, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Of course.
So I'd like to take you right back to the very beginning. Where did you grow up?
I was born on the coldest day of the year in Denver, Colorado. I won't name the year, but the VW bus barely started in order to get me to the hospital in time. So yeah, that's if you really want the real genesis, that's it.
That's it. Yeah. And so what was your childhood like? What, for example, what was a fun day for you when you were a kid?
Well, I was an only child, so it was a bit, I wouldn't say solitary. I just, I was around adults a lot.
Right.
So I was a very adult child. And then now that I've become an adult, I'm more of a child. Like I missed out on some of that. So I'm making up for it now. But my family was extremely cultured, really great about exposing me to art and music and ballet and dance and the cinema and you name it. So, from a very young age, I remember going to the opera and watching those folks up on stage, and I wanted to be one of them. And sometimes I made it into the aisles and practically up on stage before they were able to, retrieve me back.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it really did start that. So did you do amateur dramatics when you were a kid?
Yes, I was. Yeah, actually, it's funny. I remember my mom taking me to see a children's touring show at the local, public library, and I wanted to be one of those guys, boy. And so, sure enough, I auditioned, did not get in, but that did not deter me. They offered, kids creative dramatics classes, which I signed up for. And sure enough, at my very first class, I projectile vomited. I was so excited to be there. And again, that still didn't deter me. I was like hooked. I needed more. And yeah, so, but that ended up, I performed actually with this little company called Kid Skits. And it's funny, we're still friends. Like the friendships that I made then are still very much, these guys are still working in the industry. I could name drop quite a few, some of which you may even know of, kids singing and dancing and performing every Saturday morning at the Comedy Works in downtown Denver, who are, still at it today. It's quite remarkable.
Right. Did you watch a lot of TV or films when you were a kid?
No, not at all. television was very forbidden. It was, the boob tube. It rotted the brain. So my television viewing was limited to Cosmos with Carl Sagan and Sunday Morning with Charles Kuralt. I don't know if you're familiar with either, but they're very, intellectual, super heady, public broadcast system sort of education. And therefore, yes, that was my my drug. Whenever the parentals were away, I was binging Family Ties and Facts of Life, and then the minute they came in, I was television off. No, I wasn't doing anything. I remember when that movie Clueless came out, and I was watching that, and I remember, again, I got nothing but side eyes from my parents. What is this? And when I told them it's based on a Jane Austen novel, all of a sudden, oh, okay. I mean, they were very just absurdly uptight. And again, what did they get? They got someone obsessed with pop culture and at the epicenter of it all. So just goes to show you, let your kids watch TV. Otherwise, look what'll happen.
So when did you decide that, okay, I really want to do this professionally? And presume you went away and you got trained, did you?
Yes, I decided from the very beginning, from that moment I was, having to clean up my own vomit in this, acting class. I think at that point, I mean, obviously, that performing company actually was associated with an agency, a talent agency in town. And so very soon afterward, I was actually going out for, regional commercials, Father Dowling Mysteries. Like, it wasn't much, but it was as much as there was to be done in Denver, Colorado at the time. So, I got my SAG card on my 15th birthday, which actually kind of took me out for a while, only because there wasn't all that much union work there. But it did mean that once I went on to Northwestern University in Chicago, and I was, at that point I was pretty much committed. Like I, was a theater major. I was training to be an actress, and then eventually moved on to Los Angeles as soon as I graduated, because 4 years of Chicago winter was enough. At that point I was already ahead of the game. Like I already had my, union card. I was, I think when people ask, what was that moment when you decided, it was like, I decided I was already so far gone. Like when people would ask, like, what are you going to be when you grow up? I was like, well, I'm kind of already an actress, so I guess I'll just keep doing that. Like I don't know. I also think that, acting, it's almost like being gay. Like you kind of don't get to choose. Like it chooses you, and there's really no getting around. You can't pray the actor away. Believe me, I have, and it doesn't work. Like so. Yeah, I didn't decide. It decided.
Yeah, I love that idea of pray the actor away. Yeah. It's like, why can't I just want a normal job? Why can't I just be happy and just do normal things? And
no, and I tried. I was normal for a whole year, and I was miserable. It just didn't work for me.
What did you do during your normal year? What work were you doing?
Well, I was a member of the Groundling Sunday Company, which is pretty prestigious theater, comedy theater here in Los Angeles, and they have this school, which is, I don't want to say pyramid system because it sounds sort of like some sort of cult, which it kind of is, but basically you just keep rising. At the bottom level is basically everyone who's whoever thought they were funny in their high school ever, right? And the more you go, the more it really whittles down. And by the end, by the tip top, you're with like the eminent, you know, comedy pros in working today. You know, everybody on SNL came out of Groundlings. So, and I actually made it to the tip top. But alas, at the tip top, they either vote you up or out, and they voted me out. And so at that point, I just felt like I'd given it my all. That was my, you know, that was my one direct route to Saturday Night Live. And when they voted me off, I figured, well, they're the authority. They know what's what. I must suck. You know, they said. So I quit. I gave it I basically, to answer your question, I just decided I needed a day job, a real job. So I went to a school called the Beverly Hills Lingual Institute, and you know, asked if they needed Spanish teachers, and they did. And so I became a Spanish teacher, and I got a boyfriend, and you know, I did all those things that I'd basically been denying myself because I felt like, you know, you can't do it all. Like, you know, I felt very much like, you know, I tend to be hyper focused. And so, you know, I can't like have a boyfriend and a career at the same time, and which is obviously not true. Others manage. I just haven't. Like, I can't do both. Or at least I haven't been able to be successful at both at the same time.
Right.
So, in any case, you know, I did all these things I'd been denying myself. And after a good year in, I realized just how miserable I was. So I quit the boyfriend, not boys, just that particular one. And I wish I could have quit the job, but I couldn't. I needed to, couldn't afford my life otherwise. But I did get busy writing and creating my own material because, I wasn't being cast in a traditional way. And so I might as well cast myself. And that was my saving grace. That kind of got me, that was my gateway drug back in.
Right. So is this what led you on to doing the solo shows?
Yes, that was actually my second solo show.
Right.
Yeah.
So for those of the, because obviously these are theatre shows, I've seen clips because they're on your website. So please tell people a little about what was the inspiration for the solo shows?
Well, I am. It sounds kind of gross when you say it that way, but or when I say it that way. Everything sounds nice when it comes out of your mouth because it's British. I love it. I'm like, but yeah, no, what can I say? I am kind of my own muse. Like, I am able to look at myself and laugh at myself. Like, I find, often in a situation, you have a choice. You could go right or you could go left. And right is like the right way to go. Like, that's what you should do. But wouldn't it be interesting if you went this other way? Like, what would happen? What happens if you lie to the cop about your identity? What happens if you, buy the car on eBay? Like, what happens when so this is like, that's me. I kind of like to, I'm a sucker for a story. Like, I take raconteur to the next level. Like, I see the story as it's happening and I cannot wait to tell it at the cocktail party. So I live it just to see how it'll end. And so, yeah, that, to answer your question, these solo shows, it started off just like I said. I wasn't being cast traditionally, so I thought, well, gosh, what should I do? I got to writing what I thought was a solo show. It was really like a sketch show. It was kind of like a Carol Burnett show, starring Naomi Grossman. And the idea is that I would, cast all my funny friends as the other, supporting characters. I got together with a really established solo show director who said, this is great stuff, but it's not a solo show. You want to do a solo show, and then you wrote a show starring a bunch of people. So why don't you write a solo show? So that's what I did. And, and he was like, what would you like to write about? And of course I was like, well, I wrote what I like to write about. And he said, all right, fine, tell me your story. And so I did. And sadly, so much of my story is about wanting to be an actor, which is quite toxic in Hollywood. Like, if there's ever a story that, that people do not want to hear, it's about your acting career, or in my case at the time, lack thereof. So I told him my story, which included a little sabbatical to Argentina in high school. And he's like, that's interesting. I would never know that about you. Let's hear about that. And so that was the genesis for my first one-woman show. And maybe the genesis for my sort of need for adventure, perhaps. I don't know. But so that's when I got started on the first one, which I think ultimately fueled that second one, which is what I wrote when while I was teaching Spanish, post that boyfriend.
Right.
And yeah, it was one of those things where I was like, gee whiz, what should I write about? And I thought, or what should I do with myself? And I thought, well, that solo show, that was really the last time I was really truly fulfilled as an artist and as a human. And so I thought, well, let's get back to that. And at that point, I'd accumulated lots of other boyfriends since, and figured, there's got to be something to this. Like, I still don't have, a ring or a baby or anything to show for these, all these sort of misadventures dating in Los Angeles. I might as well, create something, have something to show for myself. And so that's when I wrote Carnival Knowledge, which is that second solo show. And sure enough, I've got a third under my belt, which I've written during quarantine. So yes, again, I am so proud of myself to have had something to show for this last awful year.
Yeah.
I really, it was the same kind of thing. I was like, well, gee whiz, I have no excuse right now. I'm not baking bread. I am not doing puzzles. I refuse. I'm going to do something that feeds me. And I did. I've written this third show. It's called American Horror Story, WHORE. Again, completely autobiographical. It's not quite what you think. It's not that kind of horror. I wrote that stories in Carnival Knowledge, that horror.
Right.
This horror is more of a hustler horror. So you'll be meeting Naomi pre-Pepper, mid-Pepper, post-Pepper. It's a little more mature story. And yeah, there's some bad boyfriends in there, and actually the Spanish job is in there too. So yeah, again, don't get me wrong, I'm not such a narcissist that I can only write about myself. And here I am filled, I don't know how many minutes with just Naomi. But I mean, I take a lot of interest in a lot of things other than myself, but I do know that my stories are ones that no one else can tell. And so I have a unique voice, and I'm not afraid to share it. So yeah, that's what I'm about.
That's what it's all about. And they look absolutely fascinating. As I say, I was watching the clips on your YouTube channel, and it's the one about the yoga teacher I found particularly. And it just shows how limber you are as well.
You think that helped me get another boyfriend, right? No, I've come to learn now in retrospect, it was not the yoga teacher, it was the yoga.
Right, right.
So
Okay.
I've drunk the Kool-Aid on yoga. Like yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
poor
So,
guy. I invited him to that show. He was horribly embarrassed. Didn't even greet me afterwards, just left right away. Which is too bad. Like, again, he thought it was all about him. Little did he know he just happens to be the only yoga teacher I'd known. Whatever yoga teacher I took from, I was bound to fall in love with. I just love yoga.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. I can just imagine, yeah, the reaction sitting in the audience and that dawning dread and realization. No, she
That's
can't be
me.
talking. No, yeah, that's me. That, yeah, I can.
Oh, you'd be surprised though. I had another gentleman in the audience who I actually invited. I told him, I've written a show. You're a character. I just want you to be prepared for, again, when you're sitting in the audience. Would you believe? Well, I kind of gave it away when I said specifically he was this hot old guy, and sure enough, I mean, this gentleman, he's very handsome, but he sat front row center, very tall, maybe 6'4", with a full head of white, silver hair. And so, of course, and he's basically so close that like the light is on him, essentially. So, the whole audience is like, it's that guy. And would you believe, well, first off, I make him out to be quite a Casanova. Like he was not mad at that show at all. In fact, he kept bringing dates. It's almost like I was his like reference, hey, for a good time, like, Naomi said. So yeah. So everyone has a different reaction to being the subject of a show.
Right.
I have another boyfriend who doesn't speak English, so he loved it just because he kept hearing his name, and that was the only part he understood, and he was just so thrilled to have had this honor. He didn't know what I was actually saying, and had he understood, he might not have been so thrilled, but oh well. Again,
yeah.
Ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance, absolutely. Yeah, no, as regular viewers will know, I did a one-man show a couple of years ago, just before the pandemic, about my life and so on. There's a couple of people who are mentioned in it. Yes, but not in that kind of context. Wonderful. Now, you mentioned Pepper. This is Pepper from American Horror Story, which we can see beautifully illustrated behind you.
Oh, yeah.
So all this art, is this art that people have given you?
Yes. At one point or another, I can pretty much trace back each one. This was, I remember, given to me by a gentleman in Ontario, Canada. This guy dates back to Sao Paulo, Brazil. Like, I remember these artists as they gave me their pieces. It's so moving to me. I've been inspired by a million, characters out there, but I've never thought to sit down and paint or draw them. Like, it's amazing. But evidently people do, because I have a whole room to show for it.
Wow. Okay, so this is Pepper in American Horror Story season 2. How did you get the part?
Yes, I will correct that. Season 2 and 4.
Oh, and yes, absolutely. No, you're quite correct. Of course, you're correct. You would know.
How did I get the part? Well, it was an audition like any other. I had an agent at the time who, I'll badmouth him. He was kind of one of these bottom feeder types that like sees a breakdown. A breakdown is basically the thing that Hollywood puts out that explains whatever it is that a given production is looking for. And in this particular case, it was like 4 to 5 feet tall, possibly malformed, childlike actress. Okay, so the point is, this agent evidently saw that and said, "Oh, who do I have that's short?" And my name popped up. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, this wasn't some, he wasn't using these like visionary casting skills when he thought of me. Like, I think he just threw all his petite actresses at a canvas and saw what stuck. I will say, I think the casting agents, however, really deserve some real props, because they were able to um, see me. I mean, the
Hmm.
fact is, like, yes, I am 4 to 5 feet tall. I am maybe even 5'1", but they were able to look past that. I'm not malformed, but I can, I'm a trained improviser and theater,
Hmm.
actress. Like, I can do that. Like, I personally really object to this idea that we have to be the thing that we're playing. Like, that seems like that's totally against what I'm here to do. Like, I want to be everything but me. If I wanted to just be me, I'd be on a reality show. No thanks. That you right here, right now, are getting as pure Naomi as I'll ever show. you know.
Yeah.
Um, but
Uh,
in any case, the audition consisted of a monologue of Jessica Lange's from season 1, as well as a little improv. They gave me a ball and they asked me to try to get them to play with them, which at the time I was like, I don't get this at all. But in retrospect, I realized they that they wanted to see range. They wanted to see that I could go from the early playful Pepper to the evolved alien abducted Pepper. So yeah, but I
yeah.
remember driving away from that audition, as you do in Los Angeles, just berating myself, like, ugh, what was that? Like, Naomi, of all the auditions, that's the one you kill, the one you can't possibly get. I mean, because there was a whole waiting room of little people, like, and here I was mistakenly basically casting it myself, deciding that I was not, freaky enough for the show. I mean, the irony is they got the real freak.
What
But
did what did you think of the script when you first read it?
I didn't read it. No, truly, I did not see a full script until season 4. All I got was the pages I was on, which was crazy. I mean, that is just how secretive this show is. They're keep things very close to the vest. And it's difficult because I was having to fill in all kinds of holes that I didn't know, like, so for example, in the scene, for those who've watched it, the scene when we're first introduced to Pepper, and I want to say it's Lily Rabe's character, Sister Mary Eunice, says, "Oh, Pepper, oh, she cut her sister's baby's ears off," and and so then at that moment, I kind of look at her with this little devilish look, as if maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Like, because I honestly didn't know. All I had was what Lily Rabe said, and she said I did it. Does it mean I did? Not necessarily. But it's interesting to go back and watch, knowing how very little I actually knew. I didn't know much. So I was having to play specific enough that it wasn't totally general, but obtuse enough that I wasn't giving anything away or projecting anything that may or may not even be true. I will say, by the time season 4 rolled around, and I was not only getting to read these full scripts, but also my actual backstory, that was like, because I'd already created my own story. I had my own thing going on. Whether or not anybody else gets to hear it is neither here nor there, but an actor has to know, where they've come from, what their relationships are, their whole backstory. So even though we didn't know that about Pepper, it's not to say I didn't know it. I sure did. But of course, then the real backstory, the one that the writers wrote for me, that was a news flash. And but it was so much better than the story that I created for myself.
Right, right.
And that was the beauty of it.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, Pepper obviously suffers from microcephaly. Was part, as you say, you didn't get to read the script. What sort of research did you do about the condition?
Quite a bit, because I come from the Groundlings, where we were all about making fun, and I mean, not about making fun of a disease per se, but the whole point of that place was comedy, getting a laugh. And this is not a comedy. And especially this disease is not a comedy. So sorry. I took that my assignment very seriously. I rented the movie Freaks, which stars, of course, Schlitzie, the real life microcephalic after whom this, Pepper was modeled. And boy, I watched that on a loop. I don't even know if I ever returned it to the video store, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah, and I mean, I would even be, waiting, in my trailer, I would quick binge a little YouTube Schlitzie every time before I went, just to make sure I was, doing it. So I really did sort of the, outside in, like I kind of nailed I should say, because Schlitzie was male, gestures, walk, talk, sounds, all of that. But then I also, in tandem with that, worked with a coach, and together we sort of formed this, backstory. And so, you put it all together, and, I've got the inside and the outside.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, when did you discover that they were intending to shave your head as part of the makeup process?
That was several weeks after I'd been cast. So at that point, I'd already gone to several makeup tests. And, at that point, they'd only been putting, ball caps on me. So I was, but and they explained, like, oh, it's just so much faster to shave your head. And of course I was like, okay, but I mean, is it? Like, I mean, I get it. Like, at the end of the day, they're saving so much money. Like, paying me to shave my head and buying me a fancy wig is so much cheaper than creating a ball cap, because they're not just putting on like some, swimming cap. This is a ball cap with actual like little hairs, each one sewn in. I mean, this is like a next level, special effects makeup. It's there. My little of the Pepper makeup, those brows, each hair had been sewn in. Okay. And those were never recycled. They were used once for one day, and then they were, discarded. Yeah. So this is just a ton of craftsmanship, which costs money. So yes, it was cheaper.
Yeah.
I wasn't anxious to do it, but I also wasn't anxious to lose the part. And I did fear that they would replace me if I didn't just go for it. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the hardest part of playing the role?
Oof. Well, I would say, I mean, we sort of touched on it in terms of having to fill in holes myself, like not having all the information. Like I had a good month to sort of figure out the early Pepper. But then when she came back from the aliens, I had about a week with that material, which is it's decent. I mean, but at the same time, I was on set. I was in the makeup trailer waiting to go shoot that, where I was asking the question. So wait a minute, it says she's normal. What do you mean normal? Like, the Pepper I've established, that is her normal. Do you mean drop the character? Like, do you mean, what is normal? Like, so, I had all kinds of questions that I needed to answer right there. And fortunately, in that week of preparation, I was ready with a whole menu. Do you want Dr. Pepper? Do you want Guru Pepper? Do you want this? I had a whole, what I had a whole list of what normal could be, and it was just kind of up to them to tell me which one they wanted. But that can be a little nerve-wracking, being on set, like having your makeup applied and asking these questions, and not even to necessarily the powers that be. I mean, really the only folks I had a lot of access to was obviously the makeup people. So, I'm asking them, they're texting the producers are texting back. And I mean, that's how I'm getting my information, which is, it can be a little nerve wracking. I think that might be it. That might be it. Although there were so many challenges. I mean, just little things that you wouldn't even think about. Like, once they put that nose on, you better not have to blow for another 16 hours. The grazing at craft services, couldn't very well do that. All your little time wasters, like, texting between, my fingers didn't, my iPhone didn't recognize those big man hands. So, there were so many things that I just, you have to figure out.
Yeah.
Or just do without.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it, that relationship between the actor and the makeup artist when you're talking about special effects. It really is vital, because that is literally who you spend all your time with. Okay, so those are the hardest parts. What was the most fun part about playing Pepper?
I think the total freedom that I felt. They gave me one bit of direction, and that was enough. It was perfect. It was do Schlitzie. So I literally had a 2-word bit of direction, and it was perfect, because it was enough that I knew exactly what to do, but it was also, it allowed me so much freedom. I never felt, micromanaged. I knew as long as I was doing Schlitzie, I was doing what I was hired to do. So I would say, again, coming from the theater and improv world, where, you have total freedom, into this, small box where you actually have relatively little freedom. That was, I never felt my wings were clipped, even though obviously I had to adjust my performance for the small screen. At the same time, I felt carte blanche, sort of red carpet invitation to let my freak flag fly. And that was, as an actor, I mean, that's worth your weight in gold, or whatever the expression is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You kind of talked about producers being on the end of line. How closely did you get to work with Ryan Murphy?
He directed several episodes.
Right.
So, in some weeks, quite close. you always got his presence is always there, you
Right.
know. He's I think I feel like he's probably was more involved earlier on than now. That's just the sense you get. Like,
Mm,
you know, once a show is really like kind of up and running, once it's on to its, you know, ninth, 10th episode or 10th season,
yeah.
he
Yeah.
he doesn't feel like, you know, he's not um there for all of it per se. But you definitely, you know, the thing is, part of his genius is he's not only, well, he's a genius, but he's also surrounded himself by other genii. And they are like the Ryan whisperers. Like, they know what he wants. So, you know, yes, they're going to show him and make sure it's what he wants, but at the end of the day, they're able to really like tap into his taste.
Right.
And I think that's part of their success, you know, as a company, is that there is one vision, and everyone has kind of agreed on that vision and is working towards it.
Right. Right. So, because you mentioned the fact that you came back in season 4 as Pepper, but you also went on to play a different character in a later
Mhm.
season. I'm curious,
Mhm.
is that what was it like? Were you working with the same crew again, or was it
Yes
completely
and
different?
no. I mean, there had been some changes at that point, obviously,
Hmm.
but you know, it also felt very much like a reunion. I was, you know, back with my same old makeup artists, and they served meatloaf on set. That was, you know, again, for fans, they'll remember when Pepper wanted her meatloaf and never got it. But I'm happy to tell you, I got it. She got it after all, everybody. No, but you know, and actually, I want to say, Sarah Paulson was directing that the episode when I first came back, and so there were a lot of sort of it felt very familiar and like a kind of a homecoming.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So moving on from that slightly to Control Alt Delete, for
Uh-huh.
which you are nominated, and I'm going to read this out. Emmy nominated for Outstanding Actress in a Short Form Comedy or Drama.
Hmm.
Congratulations on that. What was the experience like of the nomination? And I understand the whole thing can be quite grueling.
Oh, grueling having people fawn over you, invite you to take some free stuff and, you know, tweet about it, go to parties, wear dresses, uh, talk about yourself in interviews. Yeah, grueling, let me tell you. No, it was wild. I mean, that was this it was a project that a couple friends of mine had pitched to me, and the idea, of course, was that it would not end as a, you know, a short form piece, but rather as a proof of concept for something much bigger,
Mhm.
you know. And you know, I want, let's face it, I still haven't gotten my series regular role on a show yet. And so if that's how I make it happen, you know, from the ground up,
Mhm.
starting with the you know, pilot presentation, then we get it sold, and then voila, you know, magic. I'm all of a sudden I've weaseled my way into a series regular role. That'll work. So really, I saw this project as something that I thought was important, and not in existence. Like, at that point, we hadn't seen a abortion comedy, you know. But the fact is, let's face it, first off, I believe in laughing at everything. If we can, there is humor everywhere, you know, you just got to find it. But also, I mean, let's face it, an abortion clinic is a workplace like any other for some, right? I mean, I've never worked at one, but for the receptionist there, that's a job that, or nurse, or whatever, that it's another job, you know. So to me, this was kind of like, you know, just the way the, you know, cheers was set at the bar, or I mean, you name it. This was their Cheers bar. This was, this was the clinic. So, the character was very fun. Apparently based on a real person who basically uses abortion as her birth control. She was actually the only would-be series regular, only because she has that many abortions. She's pretty much like there, every month to take care of business. She's got her own chair, everybody knows her. She's, it's so anyway, I think it's important to find humor in these things, and I felt like I thought it was good to I just wanted to really support these friends in their endeavor, and in the message that they were trying to put out there. An Emmy nomination was the absolute last thing I had in my mind. So that was nice, but I'd still like to see it as a show. So I don't know where that is. I haven't spoken to them in a bit, but
well, you never know. Now obviously you would touch on the fact that basically you've worked on film, you've done television, done color television, obviously got a huge investment in theater. Do you have a favorite out of those three?
Well, we already talked about my experience with television being sort of this forbidden fruit and how delicious I find it. I have always loved the idea of being in people's lives in like every week, kind of returning to their living rooms. And of course, nowadays with streaming and binge watching and whatnot, that's not the way people do it. But I think as an actor, like as a process, I appreciate theater better. Like I love the idea of being able to live that character's arc from beginning to end in the course of a night, whereas film and TV can be so disjointed, like, oh, where am I now? I don't know that my husband is cheating. Oh, I haven't found the dead body in the, oh no, I have. Oh, that changes everything. So as far as the acting profession goes, theater cannot be beat. But I can't help it. I want as many eyeballs on me as possible. And I've only, let's face it, my theater audiences don't come to Comic-Cons and paint paintings of me, so I'm a little bit of a sucker for the mass audience, and that's what I found in TV. So I wish there was a way to combine the two. In fact, I'm hoping to. Let's face it, this new solo show, American Horror Story, I would love to sell as a 1-hour comedy special, to one of these streaming networks. And that way I get both, right? I get the mass audience and I get to, live my actor journey. So that's going to be my answer, a hybrid of the two.
Right. I'm really excited for your upcoming one, your solo show, that, because as I say, having just watched the clips of the previous ones, it sounds as if it's going to be a great deal of fun, and I look forward to be able to stream it over here, if not see it live at Edinburgh or London or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now that kind of brings us up to date. You're talking about the solo show. Anything else you got coming up that you can share with us?
Oh, I just worked a couple days ago on a film called Replica. It's a low-budget film. Stars Mickey Rourke, and some other really talented actors. I play a meth addict, a neo-Nazi's girlfriend, I don't want to give too much
No,
more.
no, no.
But it's a very, very gritty role, very far from myself, which is of course my favorite always. And yeah, it was fun. We got to really act.
Right.
We were really, and especially because a lot of the actors on set did come from the theater, and so we would be acting full scenes, even before the cameras were rolling, even when they weren't on us, we were giving it our all, like a true, thespian. And so I'm very anxious for that. That said, they're not even wrapped. Like, the movie's still being shot. So,
Right.
People, whenever you ask that question, people say, "Oh, where can we see it?" Like, who knows? Like, it's still not even, it's not even in the can. So
Right.
it'll
Right.
be a while before we get to actually really talk about that. But
Right.
that's what's most recently in my
Right.
zeitgeist.
Right. Cool. Okay. Well, we're nearly at the end. I would like to end with the luggage in the crypt questions. So basically the idea, as I say, is as the name implies, we're about to send you probably into a huge, great pyramid, if that's what you'd like, and kind of ask you what you would like to take with you. So can you think of a film that you'd like to take with you?
Borat.
Really?
Yeah. I know. I come off like, people see me as this like very serious actor, but the fact is, if I could come back as Sacha Baron Cohen, with these like cojones of steel, who, is just this master improviser who is making theater, let's face it, or film too, of course,
Yeah.
but I mean, he's making, he's creating scenes out of nothing, right? And he's just such a master. I prefer the first to the second,
Right.
but I mean, yeah, Borat would be
Right.
my film choice.
Okay. What about a book?
Ooh. There's a book I read during the pandemic called Loving What Is. It's by a woman named Byron Katie, and she's one of Oprah's favorites. It's a self-help book. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of a sucker for those. But it's all about sort of just accepting where you are. And it's amazing. She has what she calls the work. It's basically a bit of inquiry in which you ask yourself certain questions. The first one being, is it true or is it real? I can't remember. I got to go back and read the book. But half the time, you'd be surprised, half the times the thing that we're plagued with or worrying about isn't even real. It's not even true. It hasn't happened yet. It may never happen. So I know I read that at the start of this pandemic, and it really helped because, so much of what we were fearing, my neighbor's going to kill me. Is it true? Yeah. Not yet.
Yeah.
I might kill them, but.
Yeah. I'm not going to supply this as evidence should the court case come up.
Thank you.
What about an album? What about music?
Oh, probably the Beatles' White Album. I love the Beatles. I know I'm too young to love them so much. Like, it's like, really? Okay. But yeah, I feel like that's just masterful. I never get sick of it. It's thankful. I'm glad I don't have like Sirius FM or one of those one of those satellite stations where all you hear is one thing, because I would literally have the Beatles on repeat and it would be endlessly annoying to everyone around me, I'm sure, but not me. Not me.
That seems fair enough. What about a favorite food or drink?
I would say Argentine asado, like filet mignon. I mean, you know, like if I could have like a big, just like grill of beef. I know I'm upsetting all the like my yogi friends, but I can't help it. Like that, it's
Yeah,
that's my
that's
answer. And
fair
I'm
enough.
sticking.
It's your choice. That's your afterlife. You take what you want. What
Yep.
what about a piece of visual art, a painting or a statue?
As I look around at all these pieces of art, you know, my dad was an architect, and like a modern, mid-century modern architect, and it would probably be hard to take my childhood home with me to the afterlife, but you didn't say it had to like fit in the box or anything.
No, it's a big pyramid. It's a,
Okay,
you can
great.
have, if you want that, that's absolutely fine. That's
Yes,
so
I would
you're
like. Yeah, our home was actually featured in a book that the Architectural Digest put out. It was just this beautiful little box house with a blue door and glass all around. I literally lived in a glass house. So you can't throw stones, but
no.
yeah, yeah, I think
Okay.
that's what I would take.
But yeah, my husband's father was an architect, or he's retired now. He's still with us.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I can appreciate that. I completely appreciate that. What about a luxury, something that is of no practical use whatsoever? A luxury.
I think being able to only do what I want to do at any given time. So, you know, being able to quit that Spanish teaching job and never have, you know, anything that I have to do at any given time that I don't want to do. Like being able to just be an actress, which I've been able to be for the last 7 years. It has been that, I mean, of all the like amazing, awesome things that have come of this whole Pepper thing, it's that being able to just quit my day job and just be what I want. That is the greatest luxury to me.
Wow. That, yes, and I think that's something that people everywhere would recognize. That is a great choice. That's a wonderful choice. Naomi, thank you very much indeed.
Oh, this was so much fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care of yourself. And I look forward to that solo show. Take care.
Oh, yes. We'll see you in Edinburgh and London.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
My thanks again to Naomi Grossman. Join me next week, and in the meantime, stay safe and well.